Ooh, I like that. I like that. It is almost time. We are counting down the minutes here to Big Cap Saturday 2023. A huge, huge Saturday of racing at Santa Anita Park. The Big Cap, of course, the Santa Anita Handicap headliner, but three other graded stakes races on tap. And this is your Big Cap expert betting preview show. I'm Dan Tordjman. With me, Carothers, Mike Somich, Jeff Chapman, Chappie, known affectionately, of course, as Chappie. First time doing a show like this with you. Excited. You got the local knowledge. Mike's with you out west. Ren and me, we're on the East Coast, but we each bring a little something to the table. So excited to dive into all of this. And one of the other things we're going to talk about, just briefly, is the mandatory Pick 6 payout on Saturday. Great Pick 6 sequence. Two of the races we're going to talk about tonight, the Kilroe and the Santa Anita Handicap, are part of that sequence. So if you're looking to make some money, this is the show. You found your people. Usually, Ren, I start with you, but today we're doing things a little different. We're jumping to our first race, and that's Mike. Mike's leading off. Mike, the Buena Vista Stakes, a really good race. Fillies and Mares going a mile on the turf. Where did you land?
Yeah, this is a tough one. We've got four that are all coming out of the Megahertz Stakes. So that's kind of where I started there. That was a grade 3. They didn't fly up front, but Quattro L was still able to make an absolutely devastating closing kick. So I ended up with Quattro L here. And you can see here, she's the 7. That's Hector Barrios trying to find a seam. The 3 horse in here, it turns out, is now the 1 horse there. So Closing Remarks is there on the rail. And you can see as soon as Quattro L gets loose, she's absolutely able to charge through there, get up to the front and get the win. An absolutely devastating kick there going a mile. Now, what you'll notice in that replay, no one else closed. And to me, that is what really stood out there. When you're able to close into a slower pace and you look back at a chart and the horse that was in first ends up in first or second, the horse that was in second ends up in second or third, everyone just kind of runs in a merry-go-round, except for that one horse who's really able to fly up late. To me, that makes that race even more impressive. Quattro has been improving consistently. Right now, she seems to be in her best form of her career. Don't love taking a 3-1 favorite here in a really tough race, but that closing kick was just devastating last time out. So give me Quattro L on top here.
All right, Mike, this is your assigned race. You got Quattro L on top. Before we all chime in, how are you going to attack this race? Do you like other horses underneath? Do you like a bigger price to maybe mess around with an exacta or something?
So I didn't find a huge price I like in this spot. I do think Closing Remarks, probably your second best horse in this spot, 7-2 on the morning line, the 1 on the inside. I thought the pace was a little interesting. You've got TikTok Famous, who's going to be second time out in Southern California, second time in the Papadormo barn, coming over from Florida at Gulfstream, running in the Saffie Joseph Jr. barn, and was forwardly placed on the synthetic last time out at Gulfstream Park 2 races back. It's nearly impossible to go gate to wire on that synthetic. So when you see a horse running well on synthetic up front, that translates exceptionally well over the turf. I think if TikTok Famous can get loose, that's a horse you can use underneath at a little bit of a price. I think Quattro L and Closing Remarks here are the top 2. And if you want to play an exacta, I would probably just play it cold and see if you can run it in the exact same order as the last race where they ran first and third. See if you can get a decent payout there, somewhere in that 10 to 12 to 1 range. I'm most likely going to be singling Quattro L in a lot of spots here.
Wow. Okay. All right. Very, very strong opinion from Mike right there. Ren, what did you think?
I can only concur with him. When you watch that replay, it's hard not to be taken aback by her. We say the phrase turn of foot quite often. That is turn of foot right there. And it's not only that, but it's also bravery for her to go in between horses that way, to close with that kick that she employed. Very impressive. So yeah, and the other horses he was talking about underneath also make a ton of sense. If TikTok Famous can get out there on the lead and shake loose, she's going to be tough. And then Closing Remarks is obviously another horse to respect in here. But again, all you need to look at is the replay there. It tells you everything.
So I like a little bit of a long shot that no one has mentioned yet. I'm going to give Chappie a chance here to steal my thunder. Let's see if he knows who I like. But no, Chappie, who do you like here? Are you going with Mike as well? You riding the wave here?
I'm not going to steal your thunder. I'm kind of going with Mike here. Luckily, I did catch Quattro L the last time out at 10 to 1. There are a couple of horses that I've been chasing out west, and that is Quattro L, who I know the barn has always been high on. I've always been high on, like Ren says. She has a great turn of foot, which I love. And Closing Remarks as well. Closing Remarks has always been knocking on the door in those graded stakes. I'm not getting too fancy. They're the top two choices. I do think it's a little bit more wide open than that, but those are my top two picks. Closing remarks of Quattrell.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll jump in with some madness. I didn't see too much speed in this race, and so I ended up kind of landing on the horse that I think is going to be on the front and might potentially be loose. That's the 7 horse, Anaglasa. Is that how you pronounce that?
Yeah, she's one definitely to look at. I would say Anaglasa, like you did.
Yeah. Let's go with that. Where's Frank Miramati when you need him? I should have invited him, obviously.
And we should have phoned a friend. I could have called in Frankie. I don't know how to pronounce that myself.
Let's go with Anaglasa.
There you go.
Yeah, go ahead, Ren.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, she definitely has shown some speed in the past. I mean, not blistering, except for if you go back to that main special weight when it's where she really was, on the front end. Because if you look at the other race where she got the lead, the one before the layoff, I mean, she had kind of all her own way. She was able to go 23-2 and 47-4, but that doesn't mean that she can't, get out there and jet. I just think that, when you're up against it like this and in the 7 hole, she's going to really have to go. And I don't know, you're going up against some good horses here. I don't know that she can, even if she got the lead.
The only other thing we talked about a little bit, and pace plays a role in a race we'll talk about later. D'Amato seems to hold the cards in a couple of these races when it comes to pace. School Dance can show some speed, so he's not going to send both, obviously. The one horse that could show a little more speed that wouldn't shock me is Nadette on the outside, who didn't run a step last time. But Frankie Dettori jumps aboard, and if you've noticed, Frankie's gotten, especially down the hill, but he's been aggressive when he gets on horses out here for the first time. This has nothing to do with down the hill, but Frankie ran 10 times down the hill, won 5 of them. But many times horses have not shown any speed, and he's been very aggressive since coming to the West Coast. So that horse could be sneaky pace-wise.
Yeah, Nadette's an interesting one as well. Shown speed multiple times in Europe when you go back and watch her replays, and showed a little bit of speed last time in the megahertz, none in her debut in the West Coast. If she runs back to that West Coast race, this might be the time to have her. She was sub 4-1 last time. You're going to get 8-10-1 on her this time. So it's the right race for her to win if you're a bettor, because you're going to get the right price on her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you see, folks, if this is your first time joining us, this is how it goes. Like, I say I like a horse. I didn't even make the case for the horse, and everyone just told us why that horse is not going to win. So, anyhow.
She could.
To be fair, that last race is a little bit of a mess, too. You see her second 8 lengths back. Well, there was someone who ran off, essentially, from the field there. They went 22 and change, 45 and change. If the idea here is to send, and TikTok famous does not send, then the 7 could clear the field and then get a little funky. But it's crazy. You kind of think Santa Anita, you assume speed is what you want on that turf course. Going 2 turns, you want to be like 3 to 5 lengths off the lead a lot of the time, because you were able to make up ground down that stretch at Santa Anita, which I think people kind of don't necessarily think of because the dirt is so speed favoring a lot of times.
No
Mike, another quick question for you, since it sounds like you really went through with Nadette and took a look. The last start she had in Europe and then the first start she had here in the States, it says that she was away slow. Is this a consistent issue with her? I mean, she didn't obviously display it last out, but
looks like she flips a coin, really. I mean, we've seen a couple of the races back in Europe. She didn't break cleanly. She was more toward the rear. But like I said, she was in a grade 1 over in Europe. She was up front, right? She was on the pace, stalking the pace, length and a half behind last time in the megahertz as well. So she's not devoid of speed, but you also can't. I wouldn't guarantee she's going to break either, which puts that little seed of doubt in you. However, she didn't break for starting the U.S., and she ran much better than when she did break. So she may want to be a little further off the pace here in the U.S. just because it's a little quicker than what you see in Europe. So she may actually be a better stalker closer here than she was in Europe.
And like you guys said, she got Frankie now, so.
The one puzzling thing about the last race that Mike was talking about in the megahertz, a couple of those horses, Nadette and School Dance, they didn't run a jump. So it's kind of a puzzling race. So you're going to get a little bit more value if they run back to their old form. Neither of them ran a step and just kind of flattened out. It doesn't make – Quattrell still has that huge turn of foot, and she showed it there. But a couple of them just didn't run the race for whatever reason.
Well, I'm also wondering, I mean, she's run well off a layoff before. So she did, She did show something early, but then I wonder if she just got tired of stalking a tepid pace up front. I don't know. Sometimes horses, they just get lulled into a gallop and then they don't kick on for whatever reason. It can be mental often when that happens, but I don't know in this particular case, obviously, because I don't know the horse well enough.
Yeah. Well, look, we've got consensus on Quattrell. Folks, you're watching. Do not leave on a gloss off your tickets. They all make great cases, but believe me, trust me, I got this one. I've got your exacta. So follow me and follow Ren into the 6th race, because when it comes to 3-year-olds earlier in their 3-year-old season, 2-year-olds, Ren's your person, right? The pedigree expert, and I would say racing's most trusted pedigree handicapper in 2023. Ren, what do you make of the San Felipe Stakes?
Well, I just want to preface this by saying my opinion lately has not been as sharp in anything, I feel like, as of late. But no, because we do go through. I mean, I think all of you can attest to this. We all go through our peaks and valleys when it comes to handicapping. We can be real hot, and then we go through a little bit of a cold spell. I feel like I'm in a lukewarm spell right now. But that being said, I took a look at this race and going through it. Your obvious horses are your obvious horses. Of course, we're going to think that National Treasure has a huge chance in this race. I mean, last out is first off the layoff there in the Sham. He didn't get away really well from the gate. It looked like he kind of hooked himself just a little bit on there. I don't think you get that sense of it just looking at the form itself. And if you watch that race further, tight into the turn as well. And this is a horse, he's a beautiful specimen, and he definitely has the pedigree to go the mile 16th, no problem. And of course, we've seen him go a mile 16th on 2 occasions in the American Pharoah and in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, in the money in both, but you're beaten by Cave Rock, your stablemate in the American Pharoah, and then in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, you got Forte, Cave Rock. That race was, if you recall, Cave Rock just kind of went out there, and I don't know. But this horse, National Treasure, obviously has a lot of talent, but he's also only 3-1, and I don't think he's a lock. We did see him kind of finish, well, not just kind of, but he did finish the better of Hijazi the last time those two hooked up. That was in the American Pharoah. Hijazi had been drawn wide. He was losing some ground down the backstretch. We saw him give a little bit of a breather, and then as they came around the turn, he did try to kick on, but he could not continue to go on with National Treasure, and we did see National Treasure go ahead there and only get beat 5 1/4 lengths. That being said, when you're looking at this, for me, the horse is going to be Mr. Fisk, excuse me. And the reason being, there's upside there. He might not even hit the board. There's a big chance of that. I might be forcing this, honest to goodness. But when I look at Mr. Fisk, and I, lightly raced, 3 starts, ignoring the debut, I don't really care about that. Only gets beat 3/4 of a length there at Del Mar, and then comes back to win the maiden special weight at Santa Anita by 3/4 of a length over another next out winner. It's actually that second race back that catches my eye, because whose name do you see in there? Reincarnate. But okay, you were going to show this last out. Look at that break, by the way. That was awful. If you watch the head on, it's even more dramatic. So he goes out, he banks to the right, and now we're going to cut to here. Okay, thank you. And you can see kind of tight in the turn. There's another angle where it looks a lot more dramatic than that. But you see him close, and he is closing well. He does have a little bit of a high knee action, which kind of makes sense considering that his dam is a grass horse. But that also being said, not only was she a grass horse, she's distance. I mean, she won the Astra Stakes for Bob after she had been imported, and that's 1.5 miles, okay? So you've now seen this horse run really well at 1 mile. That is not an optimal distance for him whatsoever, considering the bottom side. He's by Arrogate. We know Arrogate obviously could win going long, no problem. I think this is a horse that can only get better. But as I was saying, when you go and you look 2 back, because yes, Handicapp was a next out winner. Not overly impressive, but he did win a maiden special weight, put up an 85 buyer figure. He finished 4.5 lengths the better of a horse named Yellow Brick, whose name you'll also see in the company lines there of Skinner. Okay. So, but it's the Reincarnate connection that gets me. It's that he finished just 3/4 length off Reincarnate, who we know went on to do some big things. You see that he beat National Treasure there in the Sham. Reincarnate himself, he got completely taken out of his game there in the Rebel Stakes, got shuffled back. He was double-digit lengths back So I thought it was actually impressive that he was able to finish within 2.5 lengths of confidence game there in the end in the Rebel, put up a 90 buyer figure in the sloppy sealed going. So like I said, a horse with upside. I know I'm kind of all over the place. I don't know quite where to start when I'm talking about these things. I could go pedigree first. I could go company lines first. But again, Mr. Fisk is a horse I believe has a ton of upside. And you've got Frankie Dettori aboard. I think he would give this horse a very engaged ride, if you know what I'm saying. And I think this is a race that could set up for a horse like this because we have a lot of speed.
So look, you don't have to make any apologies for picking a 15-1 shot. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? Like, we want you to think outside the box. We want to all come up with the horse that's going to win at 15-1. Yeah, like, we don't need chalk here, right? Unless you're 100% positive, like Mike was, that Quattrell was going to win at 3-1 or whatever she ends up going off at. But Mike, let's see if you come up with something a little more creative here. What do you got in this race?
Love me some National Treasure. No, I'm kidding. I think Ren hit the nail on the head with her last comment there. There is a boatload of speed in this race. And so you have two scenarios that play out here. Either someone takes them gate to wire. In that case, I do think National Treasure probably your most likely winner to go gate to wire. But if not, you're going to see someone close off the pace. Mr. Fisk makes a ton of sense. I agree with Ren there. Going to have to improve first off this layoff, but I think has every ability to do so and should get the pace set up to be able to do it. A little worried about the 11 post, but I think at 15-1, it's worth the risk that you're taking there. I mentioned, Quattrell was one of those single horses. This to me is a spread race. I think you got to go pretty deep here, try and take a couple shots. I like the 10, Skinner at 5-1 here. I thought that last race was ultra impressive. It was just a maiden breaking score, but it was first off the bench, first out as a 3-year-old, took a nice step forward for John Sheriffs there, came from off the pace, was able to make a nice move around the turn. If we can recreate that effort, it is good enough to compete with or beat all of these horses. If we can improve off it, 5-1 is going to look like an awfully good price there on Skinner. Don't love the 10 post because I don't love the 11 post, but because of the setup, should be able to save some ground on that first turn, both the 10 and the 11, because there is so much speed. They should be able to just kind of scoot right on over toward that rail and set up for that one big run. I think you're going to have some 3-year-olds sucking some wind down the lane here, and some of these closers are going to have a shot at making some ground up.
No doubt. And I should also mention, that Handicap, out of that maiden special weight score he had, he went on. He didn't finish very well, I will say, in the Risen Star, but he did try to be part of that pace setup. I mean, he sat off. He actually got the lead at one point before he folded out. And so you do have, horses of quality that Mr. Fisk has been tested against. My only concern with him is, like I said, he is a little bit high in the knee action comparatively, but I do think, as we're discussing, pace is going to make the race. And I just really like the way that he didn't even look tired as he was closing. And he shouldn't. We say that because paper will only tell you so much, but he is bred to run all day long. The horse that I'm actually really interested in seeing what he'll do is Hijazi, to be honest with you. I've been a big fan of this horse. He's a beautiful specimen. Yeah, he's a beautiful specimen. The fact that he can go as fast as he can go sprinting when he is bred for 2 turns has always captured my imagination into thinking, what will this horse do once he gets to go that route of ground? And so, of course, it was a little disappointing what happened there in the American Pharoah. I am hoping, considering the pedigree also, that the further maturation has maybe enabled him to put his best hoof forward, so to speak. Because this is a really, really good racehorse. I just don't feel things have gone right for him or just all hasn't lined up. To your point about Skinner, the only question I have with Skinner is it that he's now so much better because he's now 3 and he's had time to mature, which of course could make sense. You're by Curlin. Or was it the Lasix? I don't know. You're going to be running without Lasix in this race. So, I'm just not 100% sure. If he's going to offer a generous enough price, then, it's worth it to see. If he goes off short, which I don't think he will, then, of course, you wouldn't want to. It's all dependent upon what we see there on the board at the time. But
Ren, I'm surprised that you didn't go with Hijazi off the bat. Anything Arabic, usually I know you lead with. B, I would hope that there's more to come from him, considering the bargain basement price they got him at $3.5 million. So I think there is upside there, but I will say my concern is the horse immediately drawn to his outside, who looks just as fast as he does. I think yeah. Go ahead, Ren.
Oh, I thought Chappie wanted to say something.
I was going to make a comment about Hijazi. So just from a visual standpoint. So I was in the paddock the day Hijazi debuted at Del Mar, and I actually singled Classical Cat. It was a first-time starter for Phil D'Amato, and I said to the person next to me, they paid $3.5 million for this, because I thought just physically. Now, there's a point to this I'm getting to. The horse did not look very impressive physically. Ran second, ran okay. Then runs second time out to Speedboat Beach, who breaks a track record. Didn't see the third. I saw the third race, didn't do much in the American Pharoah. I was in the paddock for the 3-year-old debut, standing next to Mike Pipey, who has a very good eye. And when Hijazi walked out, I said, wow, that is a different looking horse. And he said, absolutely. And the horse looked like it had grown up and muscle on top of muscle. And look, I thought it was a skinny little rat for $3.5 million. And the last time, super impressive. So
see, this is the thing. Oh, what you're saying though, he's by Bernardini. He's going to have that frame, right, where he needs to fill into himself. So that's what I'm thinking about. And I know that we saw him just go out there and blitz the lead through very fast, fractions there off the bench. But this is a horse who can race. So I'm not as concerned for him as I might be for others in here regarding that.
Yeah, and he drew the rail last time going 6 furlongs, so they were going to send. You never know with these, Yachtines now, who's going, who's not. The tactics may switch, because obviously I like Hijazi now. I don't know who's going to the front of that. As a matter of fact, the other horse that intrigues me some is Fort Bragg, and I'm just going off the XBTV works. By the way, Hijazi on the 18th, and I'm not a bullet guy. It's how they do it. Absolutely destroyed Laurel River working on the 18th. And Fort Bragg, the last 2 works on XBTV, outworked Harlow Cap on the 11th and Faustin on the 18th. That horse is 8-1 with JJ Hernandez.
Yeah.
I'm confused on the pace, who's going, who's sitting, who's not. But those are kind of the 2 I'm leaning towards. I agree with you with Skinner pace-wise. I go back to what Ren said. I don't know what Skinner beat. I was a Yellow Brick fan, but that horse is I'm off the Yellow Brick trail. So I'm not sure who was behind that horse. Pace-wise, it could set up for that. But I'm looking at the Fort Bragg and Hijazi just by what I've seen working, how they're doing. But I don't know who's going to the front, who's sitting back, who's in the middle.
Well, I have one comment and then I have one question for you since you're in the know. Okay, so one comment is that Hijazi, I should mention to our viewers, you do see that he beat Worcester. He went on to run third, 2 lengths beaten by Newgate there in the Robert B. Lewis. Put up a 98 buyer figure, by the way. So obviously that flatters this horse that he won so easily over him. But now my question. So Mandela must really think a lot of Go Rocket Ride to go ahead from a maiden race into this graded, attempt to get some points toward the Derby here in the San Felipe. What have you heard about this horse, if anything?
I haven't heard anything. I love the way I watch everything on XBTV. I love the way the horse was working, but Mandela often gives them a race first time out, so you don't know when to bet him first time out or not. So when they absolutely crush, that says something. Another thing is the work on February 23rd. The horse sat well back off of a target and relaxed well and then kicked on. I didn't love the way it kind of galloped out, but it wasn't like a runoff type. So once again, pace, I don't know what they're going to do here. They're clearly teaching this horse not to just be speed.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's hard to come out of that race and rate. I mean, he had one race, he went to the front and took some pressure and kicked clear. By the way, the horse finished second in that race, came back to win by 7 1/4 lengths in his next start at the same exact level. So
81 buyer.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it might be some indication though of how good good a horse we're dealing with the Go Rocket Ride. I also thought Bluegrass Go-Go is a horse who's going to inject more speed into the race. And I actually landed on a horse that we haven't talked much about, if any. It's Practical Move, 3-horse. I mean, comes in fresh of a pretty powerful win, right? I mean, what? What's that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, yeah, he could show up for sure. I mean, that's his first time going a mile on the 16th, and he won it by, as you said, 3 1/4. I think you said the margin, 3 1/4 lengths, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. there's nothing there that really wowed me. I will say this interesting.
Right, no, Dan, you will not win a race on Saturday.
I'm doing it in my pajamas. I'm smacking you down in my jammies. No.
Damn.
No,
Speaking of that, Ren, speaking of smacking in pajamas, TJ here absolutely loves you and Matt. And so, if you have any video of smacking in pajamas, TJ might be interested in it. Trusting that they're together forever. That's super sweet.
I was at their wedding. They said they'll be together forever.
That's right.
I'm holding to it.
Matthew was at our wedding. Yes, he's upstairs right now watching Ava. So thank you, TJ. That is so sweet. Thank you so much. I appreciate that truly. And so yeah.
Go on, Ren, please.
Okay. Well, the snack in pajamas will be kept private, but. No, my favorite practical move is, you do have some, pedigree that relates to the stamina. I don't know if it's going to be, good enough here in terms of taking on these horses necessarily. I mean, Practical Joke is still going to be a miler type to me. I know this horse, again, just won at a mile of 16, so you could tell me, hey, well, he's proved he can do it. And he does have some interesting pedigree. This boy actually is from the family that produced Commissioner. But he's also from the family that produced Laugh Track, who was second in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Also from the family of Vino Rosso. But Vino Rosso is by Curlin. See, so but that being said, the thing that I find—
we're not going a mile and a half here. It's a mile and a 16th. I can do a mile and a 16th. Anybody can do a mile and a 16th. Come on.
I don't know about that. Let's not get carried away.
The one thing I will say that is super interesting about this horse is that he was bred in part by Chad Brown.
Oh.
And I guess I did not read it myself, so I'm taking this by a second word of mouth. I guess Chad Brown had said that this was the best Practical Joke he'd ever seen. So
okay. Look, I don't even need that. I need the pace duel up front. I need all these horses to go at each other. Dennis here drops a comment. He thinks Fort Bragg will make the lead and press the 8, and Hijazi will sit off of it. Again, the horse that I mentioned earlier, the 4-horse, what's his name, Bluegrass Go-Go. I think it's pretty fast. I mean, I don't know that he's on the level with these from a class perspective. So maybe he drops back
and the fades are coming off too. That's the other thing to take.
I did see that. Yeah, I didn't know what to make of that exactly. But still, I do think let's not overthink this, right? There are 3 or 4 horses in here who have won on the front end. If they want to win this race or be competitive, they need to be on the front end. So. I mean, for me, just distilling it down, I think we can make arguments for a bunch of different horses based on pedigree, which you did, which I think is important in a race like this, based on who we think is going to get better, especially if it's their first time at this distance or they're stretching out or might do better going longer. But just in terms of and it's hard, to project pace in a race like this, but look, unless everything goes haywire, there's going to be a hot pace in this race. And for me, I just thought this horse was drawn well enough inside, comes in fresh. And it is funny. This is the one Yachtine that's an actual Yachtine, right? So the other 3, I think we call them Baftines, right? I mean, isn't that the
Yafford?
Yafford.
Yeah. I like that. I actually just got a text, Dan, from Magic. He said, friends don't let friends bet Practical Jokes going 2 turns. So I got to
Wait, didn't you bet Practical Joke himself?
I did. What a memory. Thank you for
Practical family too.
And you did it out of spite. You did it out of spite because you lost with something else. You're like, that's it. I'm betting Practical Joke. And me and Penelope begged you not to do it.
Meltdown. I believe it was 300 across. I hope my wife can't hear me. Meltdown.
One more comment about practical moves. I have trouble taking low sal form to another track. Don't ask me why. And I was impressed by that race. But when they run at low sal, it's hard for me to transfer that anywhere else. I don't know if you guys find that or not, but
Chappie, I don't seek it out. It's not a positive for me. It's not something I'm thrilled about.
I think American Pharaoh broke his maiden. Did he? Maybe not.
Yeah, he did win there at some point, right? Yeah,
I just want to say something really quickly. Is that we're joking about getting the Practical Joke is a really phenomenal looking horse, a phenomenal. I think he's got a really big sire career ahead of him. I know that he's a few crops in already, but I'm just telling you,
You hate
he's
him.
a beautiful.
You're not a big fan. I know.
Well, no, I'm just saying, it's all going to be dependent upon what's on the bottom side. If there's enough stamina on the bottom side, why not? I mean, you know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't say we discount the practical jokes forever. Like, oh no, can't get this. I just think in this instance, in this particular situation, I wouldn't. But Practical Joke himself, I am actually a big fan of. I have one of my favorite photos I've ever taken of a horse on the backside is a Practical Joke. But anyway, to your point, yes, I agree with what you just said regarding going from track to track. And just to wrap up on my own side, my top three here, 11, 7, 2. My heart's with Hijazi. My pocket's like, come on, let's go with the 11. And the 2 is the obvious.
So, Mike, I want to give you the last word on this, and then we're going to move on to the Kilroe. I do want to give a shout out to Ashley M. Who I don't know who Ashley M. could be.
Ashley made you.
I think she's brilliant, and I agree with her here. I agree with her like implicitly without even seeing the comment. Oh wait, let me see. I don't admit this often, but I agree with that. Oh, okay. So she agrees with me. Great. Perfect. Good. We can move on now. Mike, last word.
Yeah, real quick on the Los Al form, I find the turf horses do much better there. So I almost handicap it like a synthetic type track. And in moving forward, I use those horses on turf more than I will on dirt. Obviously, there are exceptions. But even if you think American Pharoah probably would have been a phenomenal turf horse romp there on debut.
Well, don't they have a really long stretch there at Los Alamitos?
Yeah,
it's like 7 miles. It never stops, the stretch.
So,
well, look, we've been sorry, Ren. We've been talking a lot about pace in this race. I think we'll be talking a lot about pace in the next race that we're going to cover, which is the Kilroe Mile. Another really fun betting race. Chappie, this one lands on you. Interested to hear how you see the pace unfolding in this one, and then who you ultimately landed on.
All right. Well, I'm gonna preface this by saying, value-wise, I'm going against every handicap angle I've ever had in my entire life. First of all, Air Force Red is a horse that I've won more money on than any horse in my entire life. I've singled it 3 times when he won at 10 to 1, 8 to 1, and 7 to 1. And the second race of his life, 10 to 1, he had trouble first time out. Pratt jumped off to ride a first timer for Mandela. So I got Diego Herrera and I got 10 to 1. And Air Force Red jogged. So I'm a big Air Force Red fan. So I'm going to come back to that. Then Phil D'Amato, who owns the grass races out here, and he holds all the cards in this race. Pace-wise, he's got like 7 horses in here. So it comes back to Phil D'Amato. And then you never bet Bob Baffert on the turf. But yet, my top pick is going to be Du Jour at 10 to 1. And so I'm going to go against everything I've ever taught myself in my entire life and go with Bob Baffert on the turf and try to upset the apple cart here. So if you want to show that replay, the Du Jour is actually in the replay as well. One of the horses I do like is the 8, which is Air Force Red on the front end. Du Jour making a right-hand turn there is the horse in the all red silks and absolutely explodes here late to lose by a neck, which is another D'Amato horse coming up the rail, Earl's Rock. And Du Jour is very interesting to me at 10 to 1. Baffert rarely starts any of his horses on the turf. This horse has basically been a turf horse since he started and is 4 for 4 at the distance. I think this mile suits him well. He's two wins and 3 starts at Santa Anita and off over a year layoff. So he hasn't ran since he was a 3-year-old, comes back in the Thunder Row, which we just watched, loses by a nose with a big turn of foot. I think they've spaced this enough that this horse isn't going to regress. I like the fact that Dettori jumps on here. And with the over year layoff, I think 10 to 1 is a terrific price. When we talk exactas and tries, as I mentioned, Air Force Red, I've always been a big fan of. Air Force Red always used to need the lead. I think Master of Foxhounds, especially with the blinkers on and 4 D'Amatos, goes to the front. Air Force Red's going to sit probably second and get first run on the closers. So I like that horse, especially I believe 4 to 1. And then the no-brainer of the D'Amatos is Hong Kong Harry, who just likes to win races. If you put a gun to my head and said, who's the most logical winner, it might be Hong Kong Harry, but I'm not. 3 for 3 at Santa Anita. Some of those horses just love to win, and probably that's clearly the horse to beat. But my top pick for the value is Du Jour at 10-1.
I got to believe you mentioned Hong Kong Harry, that's going to be a horse that a lot of people are going to single in this pick six sequence. I mean, it definitely looks like a standout to me. But I'm going to try to beat the horse, right? And I think there are a couple of ways you could go depending on how you see the pace unfolding. And the two pace players that you mentioned, in addition to Air Force Red, obviously Master of Foxhounds, right? I mean, that does seem to be the other likely horse to go. Mike and I had a brief conversation earlier. Mike, let's rehash it, or at least you tell me what you said earlier about who you think will end up on the lead and how easy will it be for them to get there.
Yeah, I agree that Master Foxhound is going to try and be faster on Saturday. I'm not so sure he is faster, though. Even if you just look at Air Force Red and what Air Force Red has been able to do in sprint races, going 22 and change, 43 and 3, last time going a mile, 22 and 3, 46 and 3 to the half. You look at Master Foxhounds, he's going 48 and change to these halves. I think if they decide the lead is what they want, Air Force Red can get there over Master Foxhounds. And if you cross over before that first turn, you put Master Foxhounds in a world of hurt, because then he's got to swing too wide and decide, am I going to press and cost myself this race, or am I going to sit and see if I can pounce around the final turn, and be able to make first run? I think it's more of the latter here. And I agree with you, because you've got so many D'Amatos in here, you could see him go and just decide, hey, we're going no matter what. I'm not sure he's still fast enough to beat him to the turn. And so that's really what's really interesting to me, is whether or not Air Force Red can get to the turn first. If he can, I think he's a legit win player. However, when Dan and I were looking at this, we didn't have the odds. Both of us thought we were getting 10-1 here on Air Force Red. 4-1 isn't quite the right price there. And that's what kind of pulls me away from the horse.
I think I agree with you, but I think that maybe Johnny Velasquez isn't going to want to lose this race. But with D'Amato having multiple horses in here and them adding the blinkers, I think the thought here is we're going with Air Force Red, and Air Force Red either sits off or we both pay the price and lose the war. That's my thought.
It smells like a graded stakes with Chad Brown horses at Saratoga, where you got to guess which one's going to send. You don't always know which one it's going to be. But if that happens, then all of a sudden we've got some horses that can come from off the pace that I think are awfully interesting. And Ren, I'd love to get your opinion on one of them.
Yeah.
Before I do that, the 2-horse Cabo Spirit was the 12 in the replay that you showed, broke out of the 11 post, now breaking out of the 2 post. Going to get a significantly better trip, was the furthest wide horse on that turn, should have a pretty good kick. Also second off the layoff as a 4-year-old. I like the improvement angle there, getting 12-1 on the morning line. So I wouldn't ignore the 2 Cabo Spirit. But Ren, what I'd love to hear about here is the 9 Royal Ship. This is a horse that debuted on the turf here in the U.S., ran on the turf multiple times, became a dirt horse in that older classic division. Now we're getting back on the turf. Are we bred for the turf? Is this where we should have been the whole time?
I mean, I don't know necessarily been there to be there the whole time. I'm not going to question what Papa Mandela does, but no, he definitely has turf pedigree. I mean, anytime you don't even need to be a pedigree person to see, when obviously you've got a French bred, broodmare sire, and then the, damning Brazilian, you're going to have that dynamic type of flexibility regarding surface. So no, I definitely think that this is a very interesting move he's making, bringing this horse back and maybe waking him back up by moving him back to the turf. I will say I am with Chappie regarding Du Jour. This is a horse that I was there when he won at Churchill Downs, and it was just kind of the joke, right? I mean, how many turf horses does Baffert have? I know we mentioned the mother of Mr. Fisk, that he trained her, and she was a turf horse, but he doesn't have many. And for this one to come and put in that big of a performance that he did there in his first start in a year, his first start as a gelding, they snipped him. And I actually am quite curious if they would have still gelded this horse if not for the fact that, he's by Temple City. I don't know how commercial that is. Temple City's a really good sire. He'll get you a really good racehorse. But this horse has such great pedigree on the bottom side. I'm very curious as to why they decided to geld him ultimately, because I will say that he is from the direct family of Go Zapper. I mean, This horse was it mother, grandmother? His great grandmother is City Zip, or Baby Zip, is Baby Zip. So, I mean, this horse has got tremendous pedigree because obviously not only did Baby Zip produce Go Zapper, she produced City Zip. It's a very strong pedigree. So the fact that we see this type of class and the fact that even though he's by a distant stamina influence like Temple City being a Dynaformer line sire, it makes sense that you see this speed he's able to kick on with at the end of a race. So he's a horse, again, very interested to see what he'll do here in a second start off that year layoff. But that's just my opinion.
Well, Ren, this is the portion of the show where you get to knock down my pick in this race. So it's coming.
Oh, I will say real quick, but wait, maybe we like the same horse also a little bit. Do you like?
Now I can't even get the horse out. Now the way to hear it.
Do you like Balnikov?
I don't like Balnikov.
Fine, don't like him.
What did Balnikov do to you?
No, I don't mind Balnikov, but actually, like, you know, I bounced around this, like looking at all the D'Amato runners. And I ended up on Gold Phoenix, which, go ahead, laugh.
I'm not laughing at that. No.
I don't know if the horse is going to win this race, right? It's a horse who's been going longer, comes in, first start of the year, first start of the campaign, start the horse off at a mile. I mean, reads like a setup race, right, for something else, for going longer. So there's that. So I will say that, you know, just based on like how ready the horse is to win on Saturday, I'm not sure. But if Master of Foxhounds and Air Force Red mix it up front, which I think there's at least a chance. I think Master of Foxhounds at least keeps him honest. I think Hong Kong Harry makes a lot of sense. And for me, Gold Phoenix is the price play at 12-1. It sort of didn't miss by much in the John Henry. In that race, Master of Foxhounds walked on the lead. Gold Phoenix was well off the pace, and yet, you know, still got close late, missed by a neck. Won the Del Mar Handicap. Very slow pace in that race, too. Rallied, swooped the field. Here, he's drawn the inside. I think he's going to sit just a real, you know, they're going to be like, hey, look, you know, like, no need to go crazy today. Let's see how this race sets up. And if they get the setup, like, you know, hey, we've been saving ground. We got some of these horses coming back to us. Let's make a move here and see what we've got. So, I don't know. The horse is interesting to me. I think he hits the board. Does he win? I'm not sure. You know, again, putting together that pick 6 ticket, this is a race where I do want to find, you know, because if you could beat Hong Kong Harry here, you're sitting in good shape. So for me, Gold Phoenix was one. Du Jour is another one who I think you absolutely have to use. So I'm with you, Chappie, there. And then Air Force Red, in the event that Master of Foxhounds doesn't break or based on Mike's assessment is just simply nowhere near as fast as Air Force Red, I think you got to give him a shot at wire in this field. So I like a little bit of what everybody said, yeah.
I would say that from a pedigree perspective, I think, you know, they were being kind of ambitious taking Gold Phoenix, you know, the 1.5 miles and whatnot. I mean, Bellardo was like 7 furlongs and whatnot. I mean, the dam's by Mizzen Mass, the second dam is by Gone West. I mean, like, you could go middle, you know, but in terms of being at grade 1 level and trying to go that long.
You could have stopped there, Ren. You could have said, you know what, the horse has got the pedigree.
Well, I will say another horse maybe for the exotics, though, is Balnikov. And the only reason I say that, yeah, he does need to be a little bit faster, but he's run at Santa Anita 3 times, right? And he's running the money in 2 of those instances. And in the 2 instances in which he ran in the money, those were both at a mile distance. And in those mile races, he was only ultimately beaten in nose. He was closing in and got there to be right there at the wire there. So I just think it's an interesting horse considering if we do see something hot, who could come closing. Umberto Rispoli is such a great rider. It just something caught my eye regarding this horse in particular and being back at this mile distance again here at a track he obviously likes. I don't know what happened there in the Bryan Station for him, but I thought that was also pretty gallant for him to come from all the way back to get up for that win there. So maybe a horse just not to overlook, not necessarily a win contender, but for your exotics.
All right.
The one thing with if you like anybody but Hong Kong Harry, this is the one time you're going to get a price on a Phil D'Amato horse that because Hong Kong Harry's going to get pounded at the windows. I mean, yeah, odds on here. So let's be
deservingly so. I think that's the one thing we should probably mention. Yeah. Hong Kong Harry is your most likely winner of this race, right? I mean, now the price when you're getting 4 to 5, he has to win 60% of the time you to be profitable. That might be where there's an issue with it, right? But he is the most likely winner of this race.
Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna close this thing out with the big cap. It's race 12 on Saturday, mile and a quarter. So I'll set this race up, and then I invite everyone to come in and bash me. But really, there's nothing to bash because I'm probably going with your first and second choice, which is very not me. But I'll throw in a horse that you could throw into your exactas and trifectas. So look, I think Defunded is pretty logical, right? I think Defunded could absolutely get to the front, wire this field, would not be surprised at all. I thought that's what he was going to do in the Pegasus World Cup, but the Stiletto Boy, decided, that they decided they were going to go with Stiletto Boy, and he ended up taking back. And I don't know if it made a difference. He still ran his race. He ran a great race. An Art Collector just ran out of his mind that day. And so, but still, I thought Defunded ran a great race. He's run well at Santa Anita. And he looks like, to my eyes at least, there are a couple of horses who can press. But, I mean, to my eyes, Defunded's the fastest horse in this race. So he could very well just get to the front and run away from them. But the horse that I ultimately landed on here is the 6 horse, Warren. Again. Oh, wow, we agreed. Holy cow. I didn't know that we were thinking Mike, what was that reaction? Are you shocked that you agreed with me?
I am surprised 2 of the 4 people on this team are taking Warren. Hopefully it's not 3 of the 4, right?
No.
Damn. Okay. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about Warren. We got a little bit of a backtrack we can look at in late January. He came back to the races off a 6.5 month break. That's him on the rail in the lead. You're going to see he's going to get a bit of pressure here. And again, this is off a 6.5 month break. So what does he have? This is an allowance company, right? But he's got a couple of horses coming up to him on the outside. Can he dig in? Can he find more over here? I mean, a lot of horses would just pack it in, but he's got plenty left. This is his class here that just kicks in, and he's just a lot better than these horses. So, he re-kicks there, and I think, this was a good sort of foundational race for him. And you can see here, he's a little, he's tired, right? I mean, you see that running. He looks tired late, but first race back in 6.5 months. Now, this is a year ago in the big cap. That's Express Train grinding out the win, but he's on the inside battling all the way, and he did a lot of work earlier in that race too. So I thought that was another impressive effort. Has run well at this track. Brad Cox sends this horse here. I mean, they saw fit to ship him back here this year. Coming off, again, just one race. They only got one race in him before this. Going into last year's big cap, I think he lost by... Yeah, but he lost that race by like 10 lengths, and they still sent him...
Race. I mean,
yeah, well, true, but he didn't run as well. I mean, he still didn't run as well, and they shipped him over, and he ran his race. Got to believe they're sending him here. He runs his race. Flavian Pratt is back up, I believe, right? And so Pratt's up. He was there for the race last year. He's back now. Nearly 40% when riding for Brad Cox. I mean, I figured the number was high. I didn't realize it was 40% went up for Brad Cox. It's not a small sample either. I think it's like 40-something races. So that's pretty impressive.
31.
So, what are you seeing, 31?
31 races.
31 races, 39%.
31 races. Okay. All right. Whatever. That sounds like a slight embellishment. That was nothing. Come on here. That was nothing.
25% riding Brad Cox. Come on.
I thought you were arguing the percentage. I like the percentage. I mean, the percentage, it could have been 2 races. I had it. We're fine.
But the other thing that just caught my eye regarding this horse too is, not only the same pattern, a lot of the different variables that you just laid out, but also a good horse will be pushed to put up a bigger figure when they're in with better horses, right? And we'll see that incrementally, right? He just went huge in that race last year in the Santa Anita Handicap. I mean, he just jumped up big time. So then I'm thinking, well, gosh, maybe it's not only that he was being battle tested and being pushed to be better, being in that grade 1, but maybe he really, really likes the track too.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why I really like Warren. I just I don't know. that was probably the goofiest, dorkiest giggle I've ever admitted in my life when you said that you liked him too.
Hey, I'm glad the stars aligned for at least this one race. I will say, so I gave you 2 chalk plays. If you're betting exactas and tries, although I don't absolutely love him on the outside. I think he didn't love the kickback at the Pegasus World Cup. I think Proxy on the outside runs a much better race.
Proxy's my second pick. I don't know if that's if you're saying that's your second pick.
Okay, now I'm scared. So
we're still going against you guys.
I guess people will know, like, if I'm right in the earlier races, they're going to fade these selections. And if I'm wrong in the earlier races, they're going to be like, all right, I'm slamming this try. It's going to be Warrant to Funded Proxy. So that's what I would do. I would just hammer that try. Chappie, you're against us. Who do you got?
All right, I've got one interesting price play that I'm going to use. If you look at this race, speed-wise, once again, Baffert's got a couple of them. I've always been a big defunded fan, but I'm going to talk against Stiletto Boy and Hopper are the two that go. Stiletto Boy doesn't always go, and DeSormo to me isn't a hustling rider out of there. Hopper's lightly raced, adds the blinkers. Defunded is not going with Hopper, and I think Hopper could possibly clear here at 8-1 and steal this race on the front end.
Damn.
I've always been a huge defunded fan, but I've chased that horse too often. And another thing, now we're going back to works. This is just a short work. This is a 1.25 mile race. Defunded worked with Hopper on February 18th on XBTV. Go back and watch that. Very interesting who outworked the other. Now I know they designed these, but Hopper worked very well. I think this horse is kind of on the improve. So that I give that horse a big shot at 8-1. That being said, my top pick here is going to be Newgrange, who is going to sit the perfect stalking trip. And I'll let Mike continue on with this, but 3 for 3 at Santa Anita and Frankie Dettori at 6-1. I'll take all day long. Mike?
Yeah, you nailed it, man. But the bottoms have this one. The Newgrange is going to run big here in this spot. That last race was a wonderful race. First off, 4-year-old season, able to stalk and pounce on Hopper. I would expect a decent level improvement here from Newgrange. And there is a plethora of pace again. But Newgrange is the one horse who has consistently shown he can be forwardly placed and still kick home. And to me, that is a big, big thing here. On the Warrant side, my biggest issue, name the best horse Warrant has beaten. And then tell me why he should be 4-1.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
I don't think he'll be 4-1. Do you?
Connections.
I wouldn't be shocked.
I think he'll be shorter than 4-1. I think he's going to be 5-2 or 3-1. To be honest,
I was surprised when the morning line came out because, like you're saying, it is just the connections. But I was thinking, maybe he'd be 6-1.
No. Pratt and Cox and all the rest of that stuff.
Pratt
and Cox are like 75%.
But you're off your home turf. But my point would be this: you could use that argument about like, well, who is he beating? He's the best horse he's beat. But then I would still come right back to you and say that's all valid. But how many times did he ever run at Santa Anita? Oh, once. And what did he do when he ran there? Oh, he ran his best race ever. Oh, why did he do it? I don't know. Maybe he really loves the track would be my answer to that. But you're right. If the price is not right for somebody to say this is reason enough to like a horse, then obviously you should go elsewhere. And Newgrange is definitely a horse to look out for. And for all the reasons you've already gone over. And you could only get better second time out off the layoff here. And you already put in a great performance before. And horses that have speed that carries are very dangerous.
What do we think about this? Dennis is asking about the 7 horse. This is a horse that did not factor into my handicapping at all as a long shot play. But I'm always interested in some long shots. If somebody wants to make a case, Haywood's Beach hasn't run since December, but is a grade 3 winner. Yeah, multiple grade 3 winner. And has run a couple of nice races at Santa Anita. Any shot if, he's a horse who's generally sort of forwardly placed, not on the lead. Any case to be made for him?
Well, it's one of those horses that's been successful going 1.5 miles before. So if you want to make the argument that we think the pace is going to melt down, you're going to get a monster number on this horse who could run into the Super or the Tri. I would be very surprised if he's able to win the race because I think it's a little too short. But this is one of those horses that will get wildly overlooked in the win odds. And because of that, becomes a higher value for that 3rd and 4th place if you're playing Tries and Super. So don't hate it underneath. You little crazy, Dennis, for putting it on top. But the underneath part, I don't
like
hate.
Crazy.
So there, we could, since this is the final race and we're coming up on an hour here, we're going to wrap up soon. I will say one other horse that just caught my eye a little bit is There Goes to Harvard. I don't know that.
Yeah.
I don't know if the horse is on the level exactly, but I think the horse does have some muddied up form. But for me, wouldn't it be the most surprising to grab a small piece? I think the recent losses are excusable, and he's beaten defunded. So for whatever that's worth,
a mile and a quarter on that racetrack.
Yeah, no, I think there are a couple of things to like about the horse. And again, I mean, in a race where if we're envisioning a couple of horses going at it, saving ground, kind of if he could stay close enough, doesn't have too much work to do late. I don't think he's winning, but I think he'd hit the board at a nice price. I didn't see the morning line on him, but I think he hits the board.
He's 12-1, and that's he's another play that. Michael McCarthy knows what he's doing. And that running line last time out off of a layoff on the turf, people are going to look at that. You're going to get way higher than 12-1. So when Mike's talking about value, you're going to get a lot of value on a horse that's 6 for 6 of the money at Santa Anita on dirt, and that should get a good trip from off the pace. So that Michael McCarthy can get him ready as well as anyone out here.
Yeah, that was my second pick in the race. There goes Harvard as my number 2 pick here. 12-1 morning line. I agree with Chappie. I think that floats up. I think you're getting between 15 and 20. Should save every inch of ground around the first turn. Have the pace to run into. And note that win that you're mentioning in the Grade 1 Gold Cup, ran him at a mile on the turf to prep him for that race.
Mm-hmm.
What did he do off the layoff?
Yeah.
Went a mile on the turf. That was clearly a foundation race to jump into this. This was the plan the whole time. Mike McCarthy can score a big number on big days, so I wouldn't leave the one off your multi-race tickets.
Yeah, got to use that one. And by the way, we are going to be assembling our last-minute Pick 6 ticket on Saturday. We're going to be live right here on these channels, wherever you're watching, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We're going to be live at 2:45 Pacific, so that'll give us about 15 minutes or so to get those tickets in so you can watch with us. We'll handicap, we'll bet, we'll punch those tickets in. Chappie, you're going to be running around Santa Anita all day on Saturday. You want to give us a little bit of a preview of kind of, for people who are local and who get there, who get to the track on Saturday, what they're in for?
Yeah, I mean, look, we've got things going on in the infield. We've got a big party in the Chandelier Room if anybody decides to show up there. First post is at noon. We're running 12 races. We've got 4 stakes, and we've got an after party in the Chandelier Room. The jockeys are coming up. I've got some trainers. I've been making calls all day long. That's free for anybody to come in afterwards. But if you want to go in there, have a great spot to eat, ask Mike and I. Well, Ren would know this too. We're whips here in California. It's been cold. It's warming up. But, it's the high's like 60. It feels like, I grew up in Indiana. It feels like it's 35 out here. But it's going to be a nice day, sunny. It's warming up. Come out. We've got hopefully a big crowd and terrific racing, full fields. I mean, how many times do you see the Santa or the big cap and a Derby prep that have 11 horses in it each? Yeah. So should be terrific racing and great betting all day long, as we've talked about today.
Yeah. Quite a few comments that we put up here. People who on the East Coast, who might, and there's a great card at Gulfstream as well, we should say, on Saturday. But on the East Coast, we're very excited to bet this card at Santa Anita on Saturday. Honestly, I think one of the better cards in recent memory. I mean, you got a lot, all those races in the Pick 6 sequence. And by the way, I've got a single that Ren could laugh at all day, but that single will win no matter what. I will bet anything. So think about it. Consider what you've always wanted to get me to wager, Ren. I will wager that on Saturday on the horse that I'm singling in the Pick 6 sequence, which we have not talked about because it's a race that we haven't covered tonight.
Right. Who's that signed by? The picture in the background.
That's the one in Turcotte. Yeah.
That'd be a fun one to put on the line.
Yeah.
All right, you want this?
I have that actually. So
she doesn't need it. She doesn't need it.
All right.
All right. This could be the start of the wager. The start of the wager. But I'm totally locked and loaded, ready for Saturday's card. Ren, Mike, you'll be back with me on Saturday. Any you want to make any promises ahead of time? You want to tease a little bit?
Absolutely not. No promises about anything. Because here's the thing: testament to all the entries that we're drawing. These are very tough races.
Yeah.
Absolutely tough, great betting races. And so, I'm not going to make you any promises. I'm not going to be Dan, who's basically promising the world whatsoever. What I will say is you're going to see some really great action. And I think it's exciting as we get closer and closer to the Kentucky Derby itself to see, for me, it's going to be about the San Felipe more than just the betting, but seeing who's going to be really hitting the Derby trail running as we get closer. And like I said, I'm always excited to see if pedigree bears out. So hopefully any of the notes that I put together because of what I saw on paper, I would love to see them bear out in the flesh. It doesn't always happen. I will say one of the things that stands out to me from this whole conversation we've had tonight regarding that race in particular are Chappie's reflections on what he saw of Hijazi there in the paddock last out and just the dramatic change he made in terms of maturity. I think that is such valuable information from somebody who is right there up close and personal.
Let's hope.
Yeah. No, it is. It is helpful. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. Again, as a reminder, 2:45 Pacific, Saturday. That's about 15 minutes before the start of the mandatory Pick 6. We're going to be live giving out our Pick 6 tickets and handicapping that entire 6-race sequence in 15 minutes, or so we've promised. But you've seen here, that's going to be a challenge.
For real?
Well, this was a 30-minute show, so what could go wrong?
Exactly. Nothing at all. All right, folks. Thank you to Chappie. Thank you to Mike. Thank you to Ren. We hope you all have a great night, and we will see you on Saturday.
Joey Molinaro.
Joy Taylor, television and radio host.
I don't go gambling, I go winning.